Hello, everybody. Welcome along. Cricket Badger is back. I've had two major surgeries in around about 2 months, and it's knocked the stuffing out of me a little bit. But we are back, and we will be going through the rest of the England tour of New Zealand. Also, going to be talking a little bit about Australia against India as well. That's a massive series, the Border Gavaskar Trophy, and all things cricket. And as always on this podcast, my right hand man is Lucas. Lucas, how are you?
Doing well, doing all right, but cricket results rise. No, a bit painful over the last week, but we'll get through it. Hopefully, come Friday.
Well, we'll talk a bit about your Australian team as we go through. But first of all, I should say thank you very much to manscaped.com for their continued support of the Cricket Badger podcast. Much appreciated. And if you go onto their site now, manscaped.com, loads of really good quality male grooming equipment and paraphernalia on there. Really high quality stuff. You get 25% off in the run up to Christmas. And so if you are watching this and you've got a man in your life that you'd like to buy for, great Christmas presents on there. If you are watching it and you just selfishly want something for yourself, why not? Some great stuff on there as well for you. So quote Badger when you get to checkout. You'll get 25% off. You'll get free shipping. And I think there's a couple of little gifts they're throwing into the bundle at the moment. So plenty of reasons to get on manscaped.com. And remember, quote Badger, and you'll get those discounts and those little prezzies for yourself or for a loved one as we run up into the festive period. But anyway, into New Zealand against England. And I was in the run up to this series, I thought this would be a really tough contested series. And I was actually a little bit surprised about how easily England won that first test by Lucas. I mean, possibly the difference between the two teams was New Zealand's catching, wasn't it? Dropping, was it 8 chances in England's first innings? Dropped Harry Brook 5 times in his big century. You can't do that at test level. Obviously, nobody intends to drop a catch. Obviously, everybody's going to drop a catch at some stage. But to drop 8 in one innings and to allow somebody of Harry Brook's quality to really then make you pay, that was just they almost deserved to lose the test match on that basis, didn't they?
I watched the majority of these test matches. You know, sometimes I couldn't get up in time either there. But I, in my opinion, I thought New Zealand dominated this match 80% of the time. It's just what you mentioned, the drop catches that heavily cost them. Goodness gracious me, I don't know what was going on with their fielding. You could have dropped them in the middle of the Atlantic, James, and they still wouldn't have caught anything. It was quite extraordinary. As you said, Harry Brook 5 times, twice by Tom Latham.
To be honest, if you're in the middle of the Atlantic, it's probably harder to catch a cricket ball.
It's harder to catch a cold, James. But in New Zealand's case, Tom Latham dropped 2. Tom Blundell, the wicketkeeper, very disappointed in his keeping this test. He dropped an absolute sitter, Dolly. Glenn Phillips dropped an absolute sitter, then takes the most spectacular catch you ever see. And my God, did Harry Brook make them pay?
As I say, you just can't give somebody of Harry Brook's pedigree 5 chances, can you? 5 lives. He's gonna make you pay. He's too good to give that kind of chance to.
It's weird. It's weird digesting how good he played because he got dropped 5 times. So the one hand you can say, well, he didn't do that good. He got given 5 lives. The other hand, he made a big 100. So it's very hard to make out of that innings. But
if you think about it, Lucas, the fact that it's a 3-test series, you've got 6 innings potentially in the series. It should have almost been his series over with 171 runs, and that's it. Bye, Harry Brook. You've had a poor one, but as I say, you just can't give him that kind of opportunity.
No, you can't. Drop catches aside, you make your own luck. And when like I said, he made them pay dearly. He was playing fantastic shots, scoop shots, ridiculous sweeps, as we expect with Harry Brook. That's the way he plays. But no, I will give credit where credit's due. I will say it was a fantastic innings, but no doubt New Zealand, they dropped the ball big time with that one because, like I said, 80% of it, in my opinion, was dominated by New Zealand. They should have won this test, James. They should have won this test easily, very easily, and they didn't.
I suppose if you're a Kiwi and you're heading into the second test, which starts UK time tomorrow evening at 10 p.m., but wherever you are in the world, it'll be slightly different. But they can't surely drop 8 chances in the first innings of the next test. I mean, if they do, give up. But so they've got a chance to bounce back. And as you say, I don't think there was too much between the two teams, to be honest. And if New Zealand had taken those opportunities, they could very easily have won that first test. So they've got to kind of take that attitude into test match number 2.
Yeah, let's go back to the Sri Lankan series when New Zealand recently played a couple of months ago. Their fielding in that series was dreadful, very poor. Dropped a lot of catches. They go to India and they take every single catch known to man. And then this test, they've dropped more catches. So it's not new. This is not a once-off thing. They have dropped catches before in previous series. I don't know what's going on because historically they're actually a very good fielding side. Actually, a top-tier, world-class fielding side. Always have been. So over the last year, a couple of series, their fielding has been very poor, below standard. I don't know if that's like a fielding coach. I don't know if they practice what they practice, but I can't really put my finger of how big of the drop has actually been when it comes to their catch fielding.
We've seen England, I think this morning, have announced they're going to have an unchanged 11 for Test match number 2. I mean, in a way, there's no surprise there because a winning side, you tend to kind of try and keep the same people in place. I guess prior to the series, the debate was Ollie Pope, should he be at number 3? Ollie Pope, should he then have the gloves? And obviously they've brought Jacob Bethel in at number 3. And I thought after that first test match that Ollie Pope got 70 yards, kept fairly tidily, did nothing too much wrong. He couldn't really drop him. He seems to be fine for this series with the gloves. Jacob Bethel came in at number 3, which, to be honest, I think is too high for him. But he keeps surprising me. I think he's a very good player. And he's one for the future for England. Absolutely cast iron. He has got decent technique, and what's between his ears. I mean, that's so important in sport. What's between his ears seems to be really solid. His temperament is excellent. He made a very hard-earned 10 in his debut innings, but consumed a lot of balls in that process, which is part of the job of a number 3. And then obviously came out in the second dig and got a 50. He's maiden 50 in Test cricket. Played really nicely. Reminding me a little bit of when Joe Root debuted for Yorkshire in the Championship. Left-handed, obviously different kind of setup and different kind of players. But Rooty made I think it was a 12-ball duck in his first ever innings in first-class cricket. I was on the boundary kind of filming it, waiting for his first run and never got it. And then Yorkshire chasing quite a low score in the second innings. Root came out and played beautifully, quite as we've become accustomed to, quite impishly and freely for a 20 odd or something like that, and kind of got himself going because he was really down, I think, after his duck in the first dig. Bethel obviously not a duck, but 10 and 50, averaging over 60 now in Test cricket. Jacob Bethel, but small sample size. But he looks like somebody to me, Lucas, who has what it takes. You sometimes say, I mean, he's not got a first class ton. He's not got a century in any form of professional cricket. He's not got a fifer in any form of professional cricket. But he looks like the sort of person that you stick the 3 lions on his chest. Same with your boys in the baggy green. He kind of, his chest grows a little bit every time he takes a step up, and he looks like somebody who likes the battle, likes the challenge, and I think he's going to get better and better in an England shirt.
Well, if you look at his second innings, he actually did that very easily. I think there was a 1 over where he took Jamie Smith, the debutant from New Zealand. He took 14 off him in 1 over. If you didn't never knew anything about cricket, you just watched that 1 innings, you'd think he's been in the game for 3-4 years. He did not look out of place. His attacking shots are very good. He pick and chose the right time, the right ball to play. And like I said, when Jamie Smith came on, that was like the green light. The lights went on and just completely smashed him, especially his frontal shots, straight shots down the ground. Just quite amazing because I didn't expect that. I thought I knew England would try to finish the game quick, but the way he came out and just decided to smash everything was very impressive for a guy that's on debut. Usually it takes, probably 10, 30 test matches onwards to play innings like that. But to come in straight from the top, just from clean hitting, he was a clean hitter. That's also another thing. When he hit, they stayed hit. So maybe a prospect for number 3. Regarding Ollie Pope, now we've seen this before with Ollie Pope where he's had good scores first test. Doesn't do much onwards. But maybe he's found his spot, maybe as a keeper, maybe. I was paying very close attention to his keeping. Again, if you're new to cricket, you'd say he didn't look out of place. He didn't do anything wrong. I don't remember a drop catch from him. He looked very clean. There was a couple of times where Brendan Cast, bowled bounces and Ollie Pope couldn't get to them, but that happens to all keepers. So I think maybe they found Ollie Pope's place. Maybe time will tell. After the next couple of tests, because we've commented on him before with these type of innings and these type of series.
In terms of Ollie Pope, I think it probably benefits him no end, giving him a kind of all-rounder role. Because if you get out for naught and go out and then take a blinding catch, you're kind of in the game, and vice versa. So it kind of gives you that little bit of, more involved. I'm part of this. And at number 3, he just looks out of his depth at number 3. But coming in down the order against an older ball, most likely, he's got every chance, I think. And the thing with Ollie Pope as well, I don't know if you're aware of his kind of history. He was a keeper coming all the way up through the ranks. And it was only when he got to the Surrey kind of like top deck, and obviously Ben Folkes was with the gloves, and then obviously Jamie Smith's come in as well. He gave up the gloves and concentrated on his batting. But he's not somebody who has never kept and has been thrown the gloves because he can catch a little bit. He's somebody that knows how to keep, and it shows, doesn't it?
Oh, he didn't look out of place. Like I said, he was very, very clean. His footwork was much better than Tom Blundell's. And Tom Blundell's supposed to be the world-class keeper everyone raves about. I thought Ollie Pope's keeping was far better than Tom Blundell's this test. In New Zealand, I've never kept in New Zealand, so I'm just seeing what I see. It's a little bit easier to keep because the pitches are slower. They don't see, apart from the first session, they don't see much. There's no really real swing unless you're making those real green tops, which wasn't the case with this pitch. But it's actually very easy to keep in New Zealand compared to any other world like India, Sri Lanka, or Australia, or England, for saying with the seaming ball. But he didn't look out of place. I didn't actually know that about Ollie Pope. I didn't know he was a keeper. I knew he kept a little bit, but no, I didn't know what you just said. I didn't know that. So he looked pretty. I think the keyword's solid. If you were to give him a rating, you'd probably say an 8 out of 10 because he didn't drop anything. So he was pretty good, pretty solid.
See, for me, I've never had any doubt that Ollie Pope is a good batter. He is. He just is. You look at his performances for Surrey. You look at some of his performances for England. There is no doubt he can hold a bat and he can do a job. It's just somewhere in between the ears, I think, with him that those first 20 balls or so are really frenetic at times, and he doesn't give himself the best chance. Whereas coming in further down, I know somebody might come back at me and say, well, you look at his performances at number 4, number 3 averages more there than he does at number 6. I understand that. But I think coming in at number 7 or number 6 in the order as a keeper, you have a bit more freedom. You might sometimes be bailing your team out. You might sometimes be bouncing off the back of a fantastic platform. But I think it gives him a far better chance to put his feet up at the end of an innings after he's kept, and then put his pads on when required and come out there with maybe a little bit of pressure off him at times. And that might be just exactly what he needs. And who knows, as I agree with you. I think Ollie Pope as keeper in India or something might be a different discussion. But in New Zealand and probably in England on most of the tracks, I think he could do it. The thing is, it's only going to be for this series because Jamie Smith will come back into this side. So then they do have a decision to make. Because if Pope scores a few more runs in this series, if Jacob Bethel looks the part, and then Jamie Smith comes back in, who then makes way, and that's a discussion for the start of the English summer. But that will be something that'll be a harder one, because I was thinking, Lucas, that if Ollie Pope hadn't scored the runs, kept okay, but hadn't scored the runs, they've obviously flown out Ollie Robinson, the Durham keeper, to be the standby. He's flown a long way to be watching from the sidelines, but Ollie Pope did enough to keep the gloves. But if Ollie Pope hadn't done, and they brought in Ollie Robinson to give the gloves to him, then that would have been an interesting selection potentially, because it would have been a straight shootout between Ollie Pope and Jacob Bethel. They would have stuck with Ollie Pope, and Jacob Bethel would have been very unfortunate to have to make way. They'd have probably been able to quite easily put their arm around him and say, "You did great. You're next in line. You will play again, but you're standing out for this series." But I think the way Pope and Bethel played, they actually made that selection quite easy for themselves. The one thing I thought England might have done is rotated the seamers a little bit. Because you've got Ollie Stone out there. I forget who else is out there, but there are Potts out there. There are options. And maybe with 3 quite close together test matches, it might have been a chance to maybe just mix it up a little bit. But they've opted to go with exactly the same 11.
Yeah, the one bowler that I thought was pretty disappointing was Chris Wokes. Now, we've had conversations on this podcast. As soon as he gets off the tarmac in England, he looks a different bowler. He looks a different person. Second innings, he did a little bit better, took a couple of wickets. But the first innings, he was, I don't know what his plan was as a bowler. He was bowling a bit like Brendan Cass, who was exceptionally good. Found a good one there, England, with Brendan Cass. So he was bowling a Mark Wood. He was bowling back of the length.
What are you calling him? Brendan? Bryden?
Bryden, sorry, but it's Australian term, Brendan. Bryden Cass. But yeah, Wokes. I didn't understand his plans in the first innings, because he was bowling back of the length. He was never going to get a wicket bowling that, because he is a swing bowler, and you're not going to get wickets when you're bowling back of the length. So I don't know what he was trying to do. Second innings, as I said, yeah, he got a little bit more fuller and got some wickets, but he looked worse of the old bowlers. So I would have thought if there would have been changes, Chris Wokes, maybe for a Potts or a Ollie Stone, as you just said. But the rest of the England bowlers, especially Braden. He was Bryden. Sorry, Bryden. Be like Brighton beat Brighton. Bryden. He was he was absolutely fantastic. Like I said, England have found a real bowler there.
Let's come on to him in a second, because Chris Wokes 3 for 129 in that first test. He bowled a couple of good balls. I mean, if you bowl enough, if you throw enough mud at the wall, there's going to be a couple of good ones come out. But I thought with him, his peak years were he added a little bit of extra pace at one stage in his career and started to look as if he could be somebody that could perform overseas. But he's lost that pace. He bowls quite slowly. And there's a lot of chat in English circles about some of the other Sam Cook at Essex. You've got Ben Code at Yorkshire, Ben Sanderson at Northampton. You've got a lot of players, bowlers, who have got really good first-class records in English county cricket, who are always dismissed as saying you're too slow. Well, they bowl as quickly, if not quicker, than Chris Wokes is bowling in at the moment for England. So, yes, Chris Wokes brings a lot of experience to the party, but he brings experience overseas of bad memories, because he's not had very many highs in an England shirt overseas. His record at home is second to none. In English conditions, Chris Wokes, first name on the team sheet, absolutely no doubt about it. Take him overseas, take his passport off him, because as soon as he gets on that plane, as you say, as soon as he leaves that runway, he disappears. You know, his average overseas with the ball is about twice as much as he is at home, if not more. And his batting away from home is worse. So what does he offer this England side that a Matthew Potts or an Ollie Stone wouldn't do? Matthew Potts, I think, is a really good bowler, bowls with a little bit more pace than Chris Wokes, and still gets a little bit of movement. if I was Matty Potts, I'd be sitting there thinking, what do I need to do here to actually get another Test match? But Bryden Carse, as you say, I always knew he was a good player. I played the drafts fantasy cricket, the county cricket game, and picked my team. And Bryden Carse is pretty much always in my team because for Durham, he scores a few runs, takes a few wickets. He's always been, an accumulator of points for me in that county championship fantasy game. But I didn't know he was as good as he is because in Pakistan, he was absolutely excellent. He's changed his tack a little bit in New Zealand because you have to, because slightly different conditions. Ran in and was quite rightly player of the match, Lucas. He bowled absolutely beautifully, 6 for 42. He got in the second dig for New Zealand. And overall, player of the match, as I say, 4 for 64 in the first dig. And that I tweeted after he got his 5th wicket in the second innings saying that won't be the last fifer he gets in an England Test shirt. It won't be the last 10fer he gets an England Test shirt. If he continues to be fit and bowls like he is doing, he's a threat to anybody, including you Aussies.
Yeah, what I was hoping to show you to post a photo, but I didn't get time to do this. But if you look at his bowling action, there was a photo where he comes in just as his release points. If you're a bowling coach and you're looking at his release points, he is technically perfect. He gets the maximum height, like the maximum release point for his height. The master of that was Morne Morkel, who was actually another tall lad, but he's like ball release was as high as it can possibly be. I see that a lot in Carse. Gets a lot of bounce, and on a pitch that was very slow, he travelled world class batsmen with his bounce. I remember he did one to Tom Latham, and it surprised Tom Latham. Tom Latham's no mug with the bat. He's been around for a very long time, and get that amount of bounce from a dead pitch, a slow dead pitch. That's the most dangerous thing about him, is his bounce. When he didn't really swing at match, he didn't really seem a match, but he was almost like Neil Wagner. If you look at him, he was almost like a Neil Wagner type bowler, but it's faster than Neil Wagner. Neil Wagner's 125, 130. No, Carson's, he gets to 135, 140. So his bounce is very dangerous, and on pitches that are very bouncy, like you get in Australia, he can be very, very dangerous, very, very lethal. We've seen that with Mark Wood. He was sensational in that last Ashes trip. There's no reason whatsoever Carson can do the exact same thing as Mark Wood did. Terrific bowler.
I think with Bryden Carse, you go back to before the Pakistan series, and if you'd been picking your squad for the Ashes, he would have been discussed. He might have made a few people's squads. He might have not made a few people's squads. You pick it now, he's in the first 11 in Australia. He is really, you talk about taking your opportunities when they come. He is taking it because he has impressed everybody. I've not heard anybody have anything bad to say about Bryden Carse. He's come in with the right attitude. He's bowled really well. Talk about Jacob Bethel's temperament. He's obviously got decent head on his shoulders as well, Bryden Carse, because he's come in and he's not been phased by it. It probably helps him that his skipper's his Durham teammate, and he knows a few of the players in there because he's been in the England setup in white ball as well. But he's really taken his chances, and he's seems to be getting better. If anything, his first 10 for. Be interesting to see. He will have setbacks, I'm sure, and he might have a few niggles here and there. But be interesting to see how he copes with that. But for me, if I was picking my Ashes squad now, which would be rather futile because it's a while away yet, but if I was picking it now, he'd be inked in right at the top of the list. He'd be right up there with Root and Stokes and everybody else because he has been absolutely magnificent. Before we move on then to talk about the Border Gavaskar Trophy, do you think New Zealand will bounce back in Test match number 2?
Before this series, I had New Zealand 2-1. Like I said, they should have won this test. They dominated this test. They just couldn't catch. If they catch well, then yes, I see them winning the next test. But it'd be interesting to see how New Zealand do because they didn't. during that first inning, you can't make much of their second innings because they're always going to go for it with a low score. They're always going to play like that, a low score. With their first score, they pegged back a bit, especially Ben Stokes. He didn't play a traditional innings like he normally does. He was very patient. So I thought even Harry Book was a little bit patient. So I found that quite interesting. So they did take it back a bit. They were careful of the pitches. I expect New Zealand to especially on these pitches, talk about pitches, to have a little bit more grass on these pitches. I think that was probably not a typical New Zealand pitch than what we saw. So to answer your question, I think New Zealand will win the next test, and then depending how bad or good England play, we'll see on the third.
Be good for the series, wouldn't it, Ashley? Just if you kind of step back from my Englishness, it'd be good for the series if it's 1-1 going into the third. But we'll see how that goes. Before we go on to the Border Gavaskar Trophy, Ben Stokes was a little bit sniffy, a little bit critical of the ICC. They've been punished again, England, for slow over rates. New Zealand have as well. And both skippers have pleaded guilty, basically, and not contested it. But Ben Stokes was a little bit snippy in a tweet or a social media post he made. Like, well done, ICC. We finished this match 10 hours before it was scheduled to finish. It's almost like kind of what's your problem sort of thing. I have got a massive problem with it. And we talked about slow over rates on here before. I don't care if the match finishes inside 3 days. I don't care if it goes to the cusp of close on day 5. You have got a duty to the game to bowl your overs in a certain time. It's part of the gig. It's part of your responsibility as cricketers. Yes, I get kickback on social media from people saying, I'm paying to go to be entertained. If it's 80 overs of massive, fantastic entertainment, I am going to leave that ground happy. Wouldn't you prefer 90 overs of fantastic entertainment rather than the 80 that you haven't paid for? You paid for 90. And then people also say, Lucas, it's easier to bowl quickly or get through your overs quicker in the subcontinent, for example, when you're bowling more spin. And yeah, I get that. But you can also bowl your seamers quicker as well. I think there's a lot of times where England have kind of like mothers' meetings at mid-on and chat, and then very slow around the field and what have you. Get on with it, crack on with it. You know you got to bowl your overs. You won't get then deductions and fines and hauled in front of the ICC adjudicators and do what everybody else. I mean, Australia bowl their overs in time. India bowl their overs in time. There's plenty of seamers in both of those sides. West Indies haven't been penalised. They've got plenty of seamers in their sides. They kind of get the script. They realise they've got to bowl their overs. Yes, you might slip up every now and again. If there's rain, if you've bowled nothing but pace at the top and then there's rain and you never get a chance to get back onto bowl your spinners, you might get the odd deduction. Teams do. But England have got racking up so many minus points. I mean, it doesn't matter for this World Test Championship because they can't qualify for the final. But it matters because you have a duty to the game. England talk a lot about entertaining cricket and about how they're going to save Test cricket. Well, bowl your bloody overs then.
Yeah, it's really unacceptable. And when you said it's cricketer bowling subcontinent, well, that's garbage. Yeah, you have 2 spinners on, but it makes no difference. It makes absolutely no difference. We are in 2024, and you cannot get through 90 overs. That's just a joke. Shane Bond, New Zealand pacer. Shane Bond had a great explanation of a way to improve over rate. He said if players want to waste time, cut out the drinks break. And he said, I guarantee you they'll move quickly then. That's something I agree on. If you cut their drinks break, well, they're going to think, well, gee, we need a drink. Let's push through these overs. I think the ICC are too soft, and I think umpires can do more. These fines, the slaps on the wrists, they don't hurt England. They don't hurt New Zealand. They don't hurt Ben Stokes. Start suspending them. Suspend them from a game. Forget about these $800 fines or 5%, 10% of match fees. If you want to really enforce it, make a radical decision. Bring in suspensions. Take out a drinks break. It's been happening, for 100 years. You bowl 90 overs in a day. This isn't something new that they've just made up.
I used to bowl more. I haven't got it anymore, I don't think. But I had a graphic where you go back to the 1920s, yeah, it's a different world then, but they were bowling 22 overs an hour or something ridiculous, and it's gradually come down, or every decade it's come down a little bit. And obviously we're getting towards, it can't really get any slower, can it? So it's kind of going down slightly less now. But it is going down all of the time, and England are the worst culprits. And if everybody else can do it, Ben, why can't you? That's as simple as that for me. So rather than be churlish and kind of make little snide remarks, actually think about how you can entertain by giving people what they've paid for, 90 overs in a day. And I mean, there was one game I commentated on, I can't remember which one it was now, it was in Pakistan, I think, where we actually got through the 90 overs in the scheduled 6 hours. We didn't even take the extra half an hour. I have never, ever, I can't remember a time where I've ever worked on a game that's been like that before. It can be done, but at the moment, the extra half an hour is just part of the, if you're planning your departure from the ground, you're factoring in that extra half an hour because you know they're not going to bowl the overs in the allotted time. So it is possible to do it. And the other thing, I mean, you talk about the umpires as well, Lucas. Sorry, these little impromptu run-ons with a fresh pair of gloves or a change of headband, and they always carry. They don't just bring the gloves on; they bring out the drinks as well. And then they stand there for 2 minutes having a chat. He gets his gloves on, he's happy, he goes back again. You could have bowled half an over in that period. Yeah, umpires need to crack on and say, "Get off, man."
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Umpires can do more. And why do drinks need to come out when a pair of gloves come out? Or someone's changing bats. Why do drinks come out? No, umpires need to stand their ground and say, you know what? Bring out a glove, no drinks. Throw the gloves to the batsman, put them on, and get ready to play. Now we've got you got to get ready in 2 minutes now. Maybe there needs to be a rule in play when you switch a bat or switch a glove. You got 25, 30 seconds. To switch, or you're off.
Yeah.
But if I'm Ben Stokes, right, and someone says to me, if I'm in a game, let's say in the second test, if I'm Ben Stokes, and someone said to me, right, you're behind the over rate, you're gonna get deduction points. Would that really motivate me to go faster? Not really, because the punishment isn't there. So the only way you're going to motivate these players is suspensions, no tolerance. Forget about the fines. If you're behind in your over rate, instant 1 game suspension. And I can guarantee you, if the ICC put that into play, you will never have a problem with it again. So it's all good saying, yeah, we're going to fine you and that, and we're going to deduct test points from you, but it doesn't work because England not qualified, New Zealand not qualified. So what's the point? You might as well say, well, we're just going to let it go. Don't do it again. So it's just absolutely crazy. The ICC, I wish the ICC came down more heavily on these players. And also with Ben Stokes, it wasn't the only thing that caught my eye with him. He lashed out on the World Test Championship. I found that very interesting. In theory, I actually agree with him in theory. Now, England can't make the final, so the timing is a little bit weird.
I think everybody agrees with him in theory that it's not the perfect schedule and the perfect Test Championship, but to say that it's he doesn't understand it and to kind of ridicule it in a way is kind of I think was poor from Ben. I think Ben. I don't want this to sound like I'm criticising Ben Stokes. I've got huge admiration for him as a player. I think he's doing a fantastic job as captain. I think there's massive positives with Ben Stokes, but I think there is a little bit of an image from the England camp sometimes that we know best. The way we play cricket is the way to play cricket, and that's the only way. And the fact that the World Test Championship is kind of gets in the way of that. The fact that we get deducted points for slow over rates and stuff like that, that's the ICC's fault. That's not our fault because we're playing Test cricket the right way. We're saving the game. I think maybe in that regard, just be a little bit more humble. We need to find a way to bowl our overs quicker. But if you're given the gig as England's Test captain, if you're Brendan McCullum, it is your job to understand the World Test Championship and how it operates and how you can actually achieve the most out of it. It's not for you to say, "Oh, I don't understand it. I can't." I mean, I think there's definitely with the World Test Championship. I think there's definite in England. Supporters and probably the players, because we have never been in contention, and we haven't. then nobody really takes it seriously because it's never been something that's been on our radar. In India, Australia, New Zealand, you take it massively seriously because you know you can win it. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I agree with Ben in theory, but where was this a year ago, Ben, when you were in contention? Where was this 2 years ago? Where was this 3 years ago? So the timing couldn't be wrong, but I want to give, because I don't want to go into it and because we've done this half to death, but there is one incident I don't understand with it. Now, overnight, Bangladesh played West Indies. That was for a World Test Championship. All right, now, this was a 2-test series. I covered this on a video. Now, West Indies won the first game. Bangladesh won the second game. There is absolutely nothing, apart from statistical stats, there's nothing those two teams can come away with when it comes to the World Test Championship, because it was a dead rubber. It was a dead series because they couldn't qualify. So again, that's not the ICC's fault. It's up to West Indies and Bangladesh to win games. But from that point of view, and it was also a 2-test series, which annoys the hell out of me, but we've done that 100 times over. It doesn't benefit that series. That series that just happened does not benefit anyone except for the statistical guru, or stat padding, whatever. If you're bowling or batsman, I didn't see the point of that series. Now, a draw series, good on Bangladesh, whoever, good on West Indies. I don't know who the hell would be happy out of them two, but when you see it like that, yeah, it is pointless. It is meaningless to a degree, and I think that can be patched up a little bit, because this is not a trophy. The World Test Championship is not a trophy that England created. It's not a trophy Australia, India created. It's from the ICC, so that's their baby. They created it. I think they can do more to police it.
I think there's a lot of good in the World Test Championship. The motives of it are right. Give every test some kind of significance. Give everybody the chance to be the best, the top dog, basically the best team. But it's not right at the minute. The fact that England play 20 odd games in the cycle and New Zealand play 8 or something, I mean, that's just daft. And what I would do, just to round off on this, and tell us what you think, @cricket_badger on Twitter, get in touch with us. But I would make every series a minimum of 3 test matches. So there's going to be a winner, or give yourself more chance of there being a winning side. And if India go to Australia and want to play a 5-test series, if the Ashes is 5 test matches, fine. The first 3 test matches of that series count for the World Test Championship. The 2 that decide the trophy are surplus to the World Test Championship. There shouldn't also be, I mean, the amount of times where England have gone somewhere or have played a team and you find out that this isn't part of the World Test Championship. Well, what's the point? If you're going to have a World Test Championship, every match should count. If you're going somewhere, why fly to, I mean, this is off the top of my head, I don't know if this is right or not. Why fly to New Zealand to play a series which isn't part of the World Test Championship, where you could fly to Bangladesh and play a series that is part of the World Test Championship? There just doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to that. Maybe it needs to be over a 3 or 4 year cycle rather than a 2-year cycle to be able to get all of those matches in. But it would make much more sense to actually look at a table and see every team has pretty much played everybody else, and there's pretty much played the same.
Oh. Seem to have lost James Buttler. While James Buttler is figuring that out, he's still on. We just can't see him or hear him. I'll keep the show running unless he turns it off. My problem with I think there needs to be 2 divisions. I think there needs to be a tier 1 and tier 2 with relegation and promotion. And I think, let's say tier 1, you can. Oh, he's back. He's back. Can't hear you.
There we go. Yeah. My microphone was muted. I don't know what happened there. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah. Oh, so you heard me, yeah. So I think there needs to be a 2-tier system, and I'd like to see 2 finals. So in the championship, you play off to go into the top flight. I think there needs to be a final in tier 2, so it keeps tier 2 relevant. Well, look at this. And there has to be money behind this. So let's say, for example, Tier 2, Bangladesh and West Indies have a final. You play that final, winner of that goes to Tier 1. The last place in Tier 1 gets dropped down. I'd love to see that. I really think that would be more important matches, especially series that against like West Indies, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. I think that would be a lot more significant if you had 2 finals with 2 tiers.
I agree, and I think we should also not be frightened of Australia, India, and England dropping into the second tier if they play badly enough, or if they bowl their overs too slow and get loads of deductions and end up getting relegated. It's your own fault. Anyway, let's take a very short break on the Cricket Badger podcast. Let's say thanks again to manscaped.com for the continued support of the podcast. Don't forget, it says 20% on this advert that I've created. It's actually 25% at the moment. It's to run up to Christmas. Happy Christmas, everybody.
Forever you and me, right by my side, where you ought to be. 'Cause if I ever were to lose you, I just don't know what I'd do. Let me hear you now.
Thank you very much indeed to manscaped.com for the support of the Cricket Badger podcast. Quote Badger when you check out. You get, at the moment, in this festive period, 25% off. You'll get free shipping and a couple of freebies as well that'll be thrown into your goodie bag as it gets sent to you. But get in quickly because it's obviously Christmas postage and all the rest of it. You want to get it now before it gets too close to Christmas, but plenty of potential gifts for yourself or for your loved ones there. Let's move on to the Border Gavaskar Trophy. I'm going to try and keep this to an hour, so we've got about 18 minutes to have a chat about this. My question to you, Lucas, is, are these Australians quite as good as they think they are?
Well, before I go on, I think if Manscaped, this is not a plug by Manscaped, but if you are listening, maybe Lucas code to get 50% off. But no, to answer your question, because we actually do get Manscaped down here as well, so they ship all around the world.
It's global,
yeah,
mate.
Global, yeah. Absolutely. So there's a special plug. So yes, well, the top order is the top order certainly isn't, is it? My God, what a complete beatdown that was first test. Just speechless. What couldn't believe what I was seeing. Now I know on the tweets I said India 4-1 and Australia 4-1. India will win the first test. But I didn't expect a beatdown like this. I thought it would be close. Maybe India win by 5-6 wickets or 40 runs. This was a demolition. After the two sessions, the first day of the second session, it was all India. This could have been a whole lot worse. India just could have battered.
Well, when the Australians came off after bowling India out for 150 or whatever it was, they were bouncing off that park. They looked like they'd almost won the series then, and then came out and got absolutely rolled, didn't they?
Well, they didn't. It was funny because before this series, they didn't talk about India. They never talked about the series. They're very quiet. What they did say is they want more bounce and want more green tops. Well, they got that. They bowled out India for 151, and like you said, they were absolutely over the moon. They thought that they were going to make 300, 350 plus and just roll India in a day, and we'll see the same thing for the next test. But that was not it. They were, like I said, top order: Steve Smith, Labuschagne, McSweeney. I don't know why he's an opener, for crying out loud. That irritates me the most.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about McSweeney, because you know a bit about him, don't you? You've watched him. From what you've told me on messages and stuff, he's a middle order batter who's never opened.
He comes from South Australia, Adelaide. I was actually watching South Australia versus WA last week at the day-night Shield match. I actually did a show live from Adelaide Oval, which was quite interesting. As Bangkok
I saw
100.
your little message with your fist pumping the batters coming off, saying, "Hello, I love you, nice to see you."
Yeah. I think I might have actually played Cameron Bancroft in form. So if he does get in the Australian team, that's because of me. You can thank me for that. My age of batting advice to him. My batting advice. Yeah, good work. No, look, McSweeney. He's from Adelaide. He's from South Australia, originally from New South Wales. But he has never opened for South Australia. He bats at number 3, number 4. He's not as good with the new ball. I'm not saying he hates it, but he prefers the old ball. When he does come at it's harder, yeah. When he comes out with the old ball, his technique is very good. He's made a lot of runs domestically for South Australia over the last couple of years. He's got very good. His driving through the covers is very good. He's got a good back feet shots, like cut shots. Plays the short ball very well. But against Brommer and that new ball, he was all at sea. He looked like getting out every single ball because he's not an opener. He's not new to that. Now, even in the India A game, he did open there. He opened in the second game. Even then, he looked very nervous. He's not a nervous starter. He's not at all. He likes playing his shots. But with the new ball,
I watched his maiden test innings, Lucas, and he looked out of his depth to me.
Yeah, he did.
And it's not. I mean, we say this a lot with England, where they throw in somebody in the wrong position, and we might be saying this about Jacob Buttler in a week's time. But at the moment, that looks like an inspired choice. But it's almost like disrespecting the format by putting, and it's not fair on him, Nathan McSweeney. He's not getting the best chance to actually show what he can do, is he, in an alien position to him? Because an opener is a very specialised position. You leave a lot more balls unless you Ben Duckett. There's a different way of playing, isn't there?
Yeah, and with the new ball, he wasn't sure whether to play or leave. So that just tells you that he's completely alien to the role. And as you said, that the opening role is probably the most important role in the lineup. You have to if you can get through the new ball to help the 3 to 5 or whatever, that's good. You've done your job. I think that's where we take David Warner a little bit for granted, because he was perfect in that role. Because not only he protected 3 to 5, he reduced the new ball quite quickly because he smashed it around.
Well, how long will it be before the selectors are walking up to the commentary box and saying, David Warner, you still got your whites with you?
I'm surprised. There was a hint that he would play Sheffield Shield. In my personal opinion, I think he should have. Well, from what I've seen, he would have been a better option than McSweeney. And that's no shade on McSweeney. McSweeney is a good number 3. I think one day he'll be an excellent number 4 when Steve Smith retires. Could be this series, could be Ashes. But I think he'll be a good number 4, in my opinion. But I just didn't understand it, because we have another prodigy, 19-year-old Sam Constas, who just scored a magnificent 100 2 days ago against India, against a full potent, minus Jasprit Bumrah, but a full potent India attack, and just belted them. So that I didn't understand. But if this, I think with the selectors, right, whoever they bring in, they'll make change. If they go down 2-0, they won't win. They won't win the next 3 tests. They won't win 3 in a row. It's over. Now they have to make a decision. Do you want to transition now or the Ashes? Now look what England have done. They've tried 20 different bowlers, trying to get the right system, they're playing tests in between, but they're trying to find the right setup for Australia. They want that Ashes back. And like I said, they found a couple of really good bowlers. Now, do you want to transition new batsmen to those new bowlers with test matches under their belt? Not really. So I would, if they do lose this test match, from what I've seen, the pitch is going to be very flat. It's more like here you go, here's your chance to make runs, get in form for the top order, more than anything. If they fail to do that and they lose, they go down 2-0, I can't see how the selectors say, you know what, we're going to make 5-6 changes. We're going to bring in Sam Constas. We're going to possibly retire Steve Smith, give him that tap on the shoulder. David Warner got a tap on the shoulder. One person is not bigger than the team, James, no matter who they are. Ricky Ponting got that when he was out of form. He got the tap on the shoulder, stepped down as captain, and then retired. So if it has to be this series, so be it. But if they go down 2-0, James, that's it. They're not going to win the next 3 tests. That's a given.
Is that what the Australian selectors do? They don't bother having a chat with somebody. They just tap them on the shoulder, and the player just knows that's me done. The what surprises
it sounds
me.
like they did that to David Warner.
I mean, I'm not worried about Australian cricket. I couldn't care less whether you lose the Ashes or not. But from a kind of cricket loving perspective, you want to see the teams playing as best as they can. And what worries me a little bit about Australian cricket, Lucas, is that you go back a decade, 20 years, whatever. English county cricket was a wash. Absolutely, almost every county had one. An Australian batter in the middle order, he was racking up, averaging sort of 60, 70, 80 in the county championship, looking like $1 million. There was Darren Lehman, you got Adam Voges at Notts, you had the Hussey brothers, they were everywhere. And they were coming over here and looking like the best players in the championship. And you could have, but this was during the era of that fantastic Australian side. So there was no way in for them. So they were kind of making a living around the world and waiting, hopefully, for their chance. And a few of them got that in the end. But not all of them by any means. But some very good Australian players that never played anywhere near the Test cricket they would do if they were around now. You look at Australia now, and if you go beyond the Khawajas, the Smiths, the Labuschagnes, who is next in line? And to me, I mean, you mentioned Bancroft, who is hit and miss. You mentioned Constas, who is still an embryo in terms of his cricketing lifespan. We've seen McSweeney come in and look a little bit beatable, to be polite. Where are all this next generation of Australian cricketers? Where are they? There should be somebody absolutely banging on the door saying, "Look, pick me, pick me, pick me. I've just got 250."
Yeah, it is a concern, and we've said that for domestic cricket, the Sheffield Shield, the Australian Cup's been the benchmark. I don't think that's the case. I think the English county is far better. I think the Ranji Trophy is far better, and producing younger talent than the Shield, which was unheard of 10 years ago. You would never say that 10 years ago, with all due respect. There are a lot of prospects, out there. Lance Morris, for one, I've said Lance Morris repeatedly. How he hasn't made a Test match is insanity to me. He bowls 145, 150 plus. He was very close in India when Mitchell Starc was injured. They went back to Mitchell Starc. I players like that I can't believe haven't been given a test. When we've seen Boland, we've seen Nisa get a Test match. So there is talent out there. There's a young player called Goodwin, who's his father played for Zimbabwe, Murray Goodwin. He's a very good prospect. Actually, in the Adelaide Oval game that I saw, he hit over 200 runs in that match. Made a beautiful century in the first innings. So there are prospects. The problem is that they're not playing. Now, maybe because it's stubbornness, or maybe because they trust in the lineup. They don't want to upset people. Now, with the Australian bowling lineup, for the first time in a long time, they looked completely cooked. They looked underdone, except for Mitchell Starc. Mitchell Starc, he was bowling 10, 11 spells. His pace was 140. Cummins and Hazelwood's now injured because of that, because he was bowling long spells undercooked. He got himself injured. Might miss the third Test, not just the second one. That they look, for the first time, I saw that attack. I thought, you're not threatening. You're not threatening as you once were. Even Nathan Lyon was respectable, but he wasn't. He wasn't threatening. And don't get me started on Mitch Marsh. How and Marnus Labuschagne bowling bounces. I don't know what the hell that was. Goodness gracious! I get told by a state coach that played for Australia that I'm too slow, and I see Marnus bowling bounces. How the hell how does that make me feel? How do you think that makes me feel, James? And I'll see that in all seriousness. But I saw that. Now, if Cummins said to Marnus, bowl bounces, he did that to a T. No problems. But that really upset me, that did. Why can't Mitch Marsh do that? That's your all-rounder. If an all-rounder cannot bowl 10 overs in a day to take off pressure from the fast bowlers, it shouldn't be an all-rounder. And as you can tell, I'm still teed off by it. But it was just an absolute joke, the way they bowled. I think they'll be better. they'll be much better. I said they'll win 4-1. I think they'll be much better. I didn't predict the beatdown they'd get in the first Test match, but I think they'll be much better from now. I think that was just a hiccup. But if they do go down 2-0, James, they'll be hell to pay. I think there'll be massive ramifications. I don't think they can be stubborn any longer.
I put it to you, Lucas, as a neutral in this environment. I think India are a better side than Australia. I think it's just as simple as that. I think, this is maybe a struggling Australian side, has maybe lost its identity a little bit, has got a number of parts that aren't really contributing as much as they should or used to. But you're playing against an Indian side who, they come fresh off the back of a defeat to New Zealand at home, which is unheard of. But I think they probably took their eye off that New Zealand series because they were thinking about going to Australia because they really want to win in Australia. And I think this Indian side, man for man, is a better team than Australia. And I think, you've talked a lot in the past about serving up green tops or spinning tracks or whatever the best way to beat India might be. But India have got pretty much all of the bases covered. In their squad, they've got world-class spinners. In their squad, they've got, as we saw, Bumrah's spells in that first test were just astronomically good. The guy is a genius. You back that up with Siraj and then a couple of the other bowlers in there. I forget his name, really bad of me, but the guy that bowled some tidy overs and then got a few runs at the bottom end at number 8 or 9.
Rana?
Yeah, Rana. It was Rana I'm talking about. Some really good cricketers coming into that Indian team. And if you compare the two nations, as I say, looking at it from the outside, Australia look as if they're bereft of players at the moment, and there is nobody waiting in the wings. India could call on about 20, and they could come in and probably look the part. So, it's just, to me, I'm not trying to say this because you're with me. I think India are going to win this series quite comfortably.
I think, as a neutral, I'd support that. There will be a time. No, I know. That's why I have to disagree with you as an Australian. There will be a time, and this has been feared for some years, that it'll be an end of an era when it comes to the bowling cartel: Hazelwood, Stark, Lyon, Cummins. Now, will it be this series? Time will say. We won't know more until until the end of day 5, if there's a day 5 or day 3. I hope there's a day 3 because I'll be going on day 3 on the Sunday. I'll be going personally. So for my sake, I hope there's a damn day 3, regardless of who's winning. But we will know more if they, like I said, if they lose this, if they go down 2-0, that is an end of an era, and there has to be radical changes. Now, like I said, there are prospects in the Sheffield Shield. Bo Webster, he's another one. He's been the best all-rounder domestically for the last 3 years. He can't get in because Mitch Marsh is in the team. For some reason, they like Mitch Marsh. Bo Webster for Tasmania last week. He's not a strike bowler. He's a workhorse all-rounder. He bowled 20 overs in an innings as an all-rounder. That's insane. And then he backs up with a 50 odd and another 49 odd. He's been averaging over 50 in first class this year with the bat and under 30 with the ball. That's what an all-rounder is supposed to do. You can't get picked.
Put your money where your mouth is then. What's the result of the second test going to be? And take your heart out of this one. I just want your head to tell me.
The head says draw.
Just use your Travis.
It says draw for me because the pitch will benefit batting, and Adelaide Oval is a place where the pitch doesn't deteriorate. It's never had. Yeah, it can spin at times, but last 10 years it doesn't deteriorate. So I'm saying it'll be a draw, which helps absolutely. It doesn't help Australia because that means if India win the next test, they've retained the trophy. So I think there'll be an improvement, but I think they'll draw. So, but my heart says 4-1, but I think there'll be a draw this test.
The last twice that India have gone to Australia, they've won the first test they've lost the first test and then gone on to win the series. This time they've won the first test. It's going to be an absolute annihilation, isn't it? Come on, India. Anyway, Lucas, always good to see you. On that note, I'll say goodbye to you. Thank you, and we'll be back again after the two respective test matches that we've talked about, back after England's match against New Zealand and back after Australia's match against India. Thank you again to manscaped.com. Don't forget to quote Badger when you order on manscaped.com. 25% off, free shipping, and some goodies in this festive period. So it's an offer that you just cannot afford to turn down. We will see you again soon, everybody. Have a very good week. Enjoy the cricket, and we'll be back on the Cricket Badger podcast very soon indeed. Cheers, everybody.